Daf Chof Gimel Amud Aleph will begin right at the bottom of Chof Beis Amud Beis, the last line. We're holding in the Machlokes whether Hanocha is a mitzvah or Hadlaka is a mitzvah. The mitzvah of Hanukkah, is it the lighting of the nearest? Is the lighting of the nearest that is the mitzvah, or the placing down its place? If it's Hadlaka is a mitzvah, then if the Hadlaka was done through a shlit of a cotton, even though the Hanocha was placed by a Godel Bar Das, you're not Yotze, because if Hadlaka is a mitzvah, the Hadlaka was done by someone who's not a Bar Chiyuva. If Hanocha is a mitzvah, then it doesn't matter. As long as the Hanocha was done by a Bar Das, Bar Chiyuva, then you're Yotze. On the other hand, if Hanocha is a mitzvah, even if the Hadlaka was done by a Bar Das, but if the Hanocha was not, then you're not Yotze, because if Hanocha is a mitzvah, then the mitzvah has to be done by a Bar Chiyuva. So let's bring a ride from the following. Tashma da Amr Yishu ben Levi Ashashis. If you have a glass lantern, it was burning the entire Shabbos. The Motzai Shabbos comes Motzai Shabbos. What do you have to do? Mechaba, you have to extinguish it, umadlika, and ignite it. Now, I Amrat Bishlam Hadlaka is a mitzvah shapim. If you say Hadlaka is a mitzvah, that's fine. You have to do a Hadlaka on Motzei Shabbos for that night of Hanukkah. You have to extinguish the flame that was burning from before and relight it. But Eli Amrat Hanocha is a mitzvah. But if you say that the Hanocha is a mitzvah, Hai Mechaba Umadlika, it should be not sufficient. It should be not enough just to extinguish it and relight it. Mechaba Umagbia. You would have to do a hanocha, so that would mean that you should also have to extinguish it and pick it up, and you should have to then pick it up, relight it, and put it down, because you have to do a hanocha. It should say that you have to do a hanocha as well. So doesn't that show you that the hadlaka is a mitzvah, not the hanocha? Fraktais, if Hanocha is a mitzvah, why isn't it a kasha? If it's Hanocha mitzvah, why do we even have to extinguish it and relight it? If Hanocha is a mitzvah, then it should be enough just to put it in place. Taisus answers, we're talking in a case where it was originally lit for Shabbos, and since they were near Shabbos, it was not even lit for Hanukkah, and therefore we say over there in such a case that it's even worse. It's worse than a chereshayt of a cotton lighting it, because there's no hecker at all that this is for Hanukkah. A chereshayt of a cotton lighted, at least, if Hanocha is a mitzvah, there's a hecker that it's for a Hanukkah. Now, Rashi does not learn that way. Rashi says, he says it was lit for Hanukkah. However, the Meforshim explain in Rashi, nevertheless, since it was lit from before Shabbos, even if he lit it for Hanukkah, but the raya, someone who sees it and sees that it's a flame that was burning through the entire Shabbos, also nevertheless will say that it was letzorcha and was not done for the mitzvah of Hanukkah, so there's no presuming nisa, so it has to be relit, it has to be extinguished and relit. However, Al Kol Panim, you see from this brisa that it doesn't say you have to pick it up and put it down. So that seems to indicate clearly that it's not Hanocha is a mitzvah, it's Hadlaka. I'll bring you another raya that it's the Hadlaka that's a mitzvah, because the nusach of the bracha, what we make on the bracha is lahadlik ner shel Chanukah. The mitzvah is lahadlik, it's Hadlaka, shma mina, Hadlaka is a mitzvah, shma mina. That shows you clearly that the mitzvah is hadlaka. The hashda damnina hadlaka is a mitzvah. So therefore, now that we've proven that hadlaka is a mitzvah, hidlika chereshayt v'katan loyasav l'klum. If a chereshayt v'katan lighted, loyasav klum, because they're not a bar chiyuva, and they cannot be mitzvah with the mitzvah. But isha v'are madlika. But an isha, if she does light it, and she lights it for her husband, or if she's living alone and she lights it for herself, she's lights it. Damar Yishu ben Levi, Noshim Chayavos b'ner Chanukah, Shav Hein Hoyu Bois HaNeis. Noshim are Chayavos b'ner Chanukah, because they were saved, they were part of the Neis, was applicable to them, and it's brought down to reasons, because originally the Gzer of the Yavonim were on the Kalas, the Nashim Psulois, Libal Hegman, so the Nes saved them from that terrible decree. And also, the Nes of Hanukkah was in part brought about through a woman, through Yehudis. So therefore, they are involved in the Nes, they are considered Mechuyavis, even though it's a mitzvah Shazman Grama. And even though we say, as Saisim Psalm says, that women, even by mitzvahs derabbanan, we say that mitzvahs shazman grama, even by mitzvahs derabbanan, nashim are paturos, but here they're chayaves shavein hayu b'his hanes. Taisa says that we see from here clearly that hadloka isa mitzvah, that it's hadloka is isa mitzvah. Therefore, meikar din, it should be mutter lahadlik miner lener, to light one ner Chanukah from another. However, Taisa says that the oilam is noig to be machmir on this and not to light it miner lener. Amr of Sheshes, so Sheshes says, Achsanoi, a person who's a guest, chayav b'ner Chanukah, even though he's not in his home, he's still chayav b'ner Chanukah. Amr of Zera Meresh, Kavina Beirav, he says originally when he was not at home and he was there, and he was away from home, he was Beirav, Mishtat Fana Bepriti, Baharish B'Diz Biza, when he was, and it's with his host, he was away from home and he was learning what, and his host, he used to give a pruta, be mishtata with him and pay a pruta to be have a share of the ner Chanukah, of the oil of the Chanukah, and therefore he could be Mekayim the Nes. But Basar the Nesiv, after he got married, Basar Nesiv Yitzzi got married to his wife, Amina, he said, now I don't have to be mishtatev with the host to come adliki alai begal besoy, because my wife is lighting it for me. She is lighting it for me, therefore I don't have to be mishtatev. I can be yaitze with her hadlokas. As we mentioned before, that noshim rachayovas shafin hayu bois hanes. However, the Mishnah Berurah brings down that even though we say noshim rachayovas, so that would mean if she's living alone, she has no one to light for her, she has to light. She could be moisture her husband, as we see over here. However, if she is together with the family and her husband is lighting, even the Mahadran and Mahadran that we say that each one lights for their own, they're not obligated to light their own menorah. They're not obligated to do it. All of the oil is good. Any type of oil that we have is good for the ner, this type of, to light the candles, but Hashem and Zayis min muvchar. But the best to use for ner Chanukah is Shem and Zayis is min muvchar. That's the best one. He says initially he would look after to get oil from sesame seed. He thought that was preferred for ner Chanukah. Why? Because it burns longer. It doesn't extinguish so soon, so it'll be more assured of lighting for the requisite time. It draws the oil better, and therefore it won't go out. But now that I heard what Rishu ben Levi said, that for ner Chanukah it's Shem and Zayis, I searched for olive oil, Shem and Zayis. Omar, it's preferred because it has a clearer, brighter light. So therefore, as far as the Nes is concerned, for that it's preferred to have Shem and Zayis. Taisa said that this discussion over here only relates to ner Chanukah. And it relates to ner Chanukah, where it's better to have the light that is it draws better, lasts longer, or it's clear. But Taisa said for ner Shabbos, it's pashut that Shem and Zayis has been a muvchar, because the main criteria for the oils on Shabbos is that it should not flicker and it should not go out. So over there at Shem and Zayis min muvchar, because it's drawn after the wick, it's drawn better, and therefore we don't have that concern. The primary concern on Shabbos is that it should not flicker and go out. Weiter in the Gemara, another member of Rishu ben Levi is called Ashman Yavul Diyoi. All of the oil is good for making ink. So Rashi explains the way they used the blackness for the ink. Part of the process was they burnt oil, so they had a flame going, there was smoke, and they put a glass container there to collect the smoke, and it would have, therefore, would turn dark and with soot, and it would have the darkness of the soot on the glass container. They would scrape it off, mix it with oil, and dry it in the sun, and then they would mix it into the ingredients with the ink, and it would give the black color. So there was oil in two parts of the process. One was to create the smoke, the ishun, where they burnt the flame, and the second was when they scraped the soot, they mixed it with oil. So he said, all of the oil is yofel adyoy, but shemen zayis min mufchar. Olive oil is the best. So he boiled who, at what part of the process is olive oil the best? He boiled legavel or lashen. Is it legavel to mix the soot with the oil, or is the lashen is to create the smoke, to burn the flame, to create the smoke to begin with? Tashma the Tanur Shmuel Bar Zutrin. He says, Kol hashmanim yafon lejoy v'shemen zayis min mufchar bein legavel bein lashen. Both parts of the process, the gibel and the ishan. Another version is Rav Shmuel Bar Zutra. Not Zutri, but Zutra, he said, Masnehachi kol ha'ashonim, all those that are used to make smoke, yafon lejoy, v'shem zayis min mufchar. According to this version, it's not the gibel, it's only the ishan. Ravuna kol hasrofin yafon lejoy. He said something else. He said all of the srofin, the gum. Rashi says it's gum. Taisus says it's the resin, it's the sap. All of this is also used in the process of making oil, ink. This type of that grows wild in the forest is better. Is the blackthorn gum is the best one. If you're madlik, you light the candles, you have to make a bracha. He says even if you see the Neres Hanukkah, what are we talking about? We're talking about a person who has not yet lit the Hanukkah candles, and he is not anticipating that he will. For instance, he's traveling, and he is no one at home to light for him. That actually is a machloikis in the poskim, if we're talking where there is no one to light for him or not, if his wife is lighting for him or not. However, it's certainly if he has no one to light for him, and he's not going to light that night, and he sees Neres Hanukkah, he also is mavarch, makes brachas. Amar Rav Yehuda, Yom Rishon HaRoya, the first night of Hanukkah, the one who merely sees the Neres Hanukkah, he's not lighting, he's just Roya Mevarach Beis. He makes two brachas. Umadlik, the one who lights the Hanukkah licht on the first night, Mevarach Gimel, he makes three brachas. Mikan Ve'elech, after the first night, Madlik Mevarach Shtayim, the one who lights it, he makes two brachas. V'Roya, and the one who sees it, Mevarach Achas. Mai. So we're reducing it after the first night. There's one less bracha. The madlik the first night is 3, it goes down to 2. The roya the first night is 2, it goes down to 1. Which one is the one that's eliminated after the first night? Zman. We eliminate the shechianu, the zman. V'nimit nes. Why don't we eliminate the alanisim? We said already the first night alanisim. Why don't we eliminate that one? No. The Gemara says no. Nes kol yomis. The nes every night of Hanukkah was a nes. It lasted 8 nights. It should have lasted only 1. And there's different terutzim why the first night is considered a nes. One teretz is mentioned. Popular teretz is that only 1/8 of the oil was used each night, and it burned for the entire night. Al Kopanim, every night of Hanukkah was a nes. So you say Al Nisim all 8 nights of Hanukkah. But the Zman comes the first night and it's already arrived. So after the first night, we eliminate the Shechianu. My Mevorach, what is the nusach of the brachas that we make? My Mevorach Hashek Yedishanu b'mitzvayis v'zivanu la'ating ner shel Chanukah, that we were commanded to light the neres of Hanukkah. Where were we commanded? This is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. It's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. It's not from the Torah, so where were we commanded? Rav Avi Amar Milei Saser. We are commanded in the Torah, we have it's even the Torah to listen to the Chachamim. So Chazal and Misakin there's Chanukah, it's Fitzivonu. Rav Nechemi Amar Shalavicha v'yaged Chazakeinecha v'yoim Reloch. It's a different Makor that we are mechuyev to listen to the Chazal, to the Zakenim. Masiv Rav Amram, you're telling me that you make a bracha on a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. We learned that the person buys his produce from an amartz. So Chacham were geyser that since it's uncertain whether the Amaretz was mafresh properly the maestras, that's demai. You have to now we have to be machmer and you have to be mafresh the maestras. So he says demai ma'arvim boy. You can use it for an erev, either erev chatzeres or even tchumim. You can use it for an erev. It has to be edible. And here in this current state, it's not edible because you have to be mafresh the maestras, but the Morris Bay speaks out that it's possible to eat it. If a person is mafker nechasim, he makes all his, when he owns hefker, and he's considered an oni is mutter demai. Chazal, we're not machmir on a poor person, someone is classified as an oni. If he's classified oni, he's mutter with demai. So theoretically, anybody could eat demai, if he makes himself into an ani, if he's mafir nechasif, and you can use it for shituf mevuos, for a mavoi. In order to carry in the mavoi, you need something similar to what is a ruva chatzeres. You need a shituf mevuos, umevorach alav, and you make a bracha. You make a bracha on it. Umezamin alav, and you're mezamin alav. You're mevorachim alav, so you make hamaitzi. And if you eat it and you make a zimun, if you bench, you make a zimun, you can zamen with it. It's edible food, right? Under certain circumstances, you make the bracha. And you could theoretically be mafresh the maestras, even though he's not clothed. And you can do that on the bein hashmashos of Shabbos. On the bein hashmashos of Shabbos, they were not geyser the iser of hafresh. Now, if you're telling me that where the Rabbanan or Machayev something, you have to make a bracha like we're saying by Ner Chanukah. Now here is saying that you're mafresh the demai, the maestras from the demai. That's a chiv d'Rabbanan. Well, if it's a chiv d'Rabbanan, and you're telling me by the chiv d'Rabbanan you have to make a bracha, that should mean that if he's mafresh, it has to make a bracha. But how can he make the bracha if he's arum, if he's not clothed? So, how can you make the bracha? You have to have kedusha in your machna, and therefore you cannot make brachas if a person is not clothed. So, doesn't that show you that you do not make a bracha on the chiv d'Rabbanan? We're saying by Ner Chanukah you make a bracha, it's Ivano, even though it's only midrabanan, you make a bracha. Here, there's a chiyuv to be mafresh maestras from demai, and apparently you don't make a bracha. Omar Abaye answers, Vada did the brain bracha, boy bracha. Yes, by Chanukah you make a bracha, that's a vade de chazal masakin it in terms of a certainty. It's not on account of a suffix. But suffix, the divrei loy boy bracha. But something that comes about only because of a suffix, by demai, it's only because we're uncertain whether the amaretz was mafresh the maestras. It was not instituted as a vade. It's only on account of a suffix. Under those circumstances, Chazal were not mesakin a bracha. Frank the Gemara Yontav Sheni the Sav Divrayim Ho Bracha. Yontav Sheni was instituted by Chazal as a suffix, because it was uncertain at the time in Golos when Bezdin was Mekadosh the Chaydish. So we're not sure which of the days of the Yontiv really, is it really the day of Yontiv or not? So it's on account of a suffix that we keep 2 days of Yontiv in Golos. It was instituted as a result of a suffix, and nevertheless we make Kiddush on Yontiv Sheni, we make a bracha on Yontiv Sheni. That's only because if you didn't, it would be a zilzul in Yontav Sheni. People would treat it without the proper severity, without the proper cover. They'd say, oh, you don't make a bracha on it, must be that it's not that important. So to uphold the chumrah of it and the covet of it, they instituted a bracha in that case as well. But otherwise, on a suffix, the Rabban suffix, that Rabbanan was asking something on account of a suffix, they did not institute a bracha as opposed to Chanukah. Rav Amar, he says it's not even a suffix. Rav Amaretz Ma'asrim Hein, really Me'ikr Din. You could rely that the Amaretz was Mafresh the Maestras, because Rav Amaretz do take Maestras. It's only a Miyatz, it's only a Chumra the Rabbanan, it's not even a suffix. So they were not Mesakin a bracha. If you have a chotzer that there's a house that has two doorways, that's two doorways, three shtei neros. They have to light neros on each of the openings, because people might not realize that it's only one inhabitant over there. They might think that it's divided. Inside, it's divided into two apartments. They might think that there's two dwellers over there, and there might be chayshad that one of the residents is not being madlik ner Hanukkah. So to avoid that, each doorway has to have a neris. However, this is only mentioned that's only if there's an entranceway on separate sides. Like for instance, you have the building here, there's a doorway here, and there's a doorway here. They're on different sides. That's only if they're on Avol. But if it's on the same side, if you have two openings on the same side, then it's not needed. If the reason that you have to light on each doorway is so people shouldn't suspect that there's no candles being lit, so chashad deman, who are we concerned that might have a chashad, might suspect? If it's people from outside the city, if it's on the same side, then they should also have to light, because they might think it's subdivided inside and there's two different residents and one is not lighting. And if it's from the people who live in the city, if it's on two different sides, it should not be required, because the people in the city know who the residents are and they know that there's only one resident, so there'll be no suspicion. Really, what we're concerned about is chashad of the people in the city. People outside the city, we're not concerned with that. One of the reasons given is because people don't normally travel at night, or perhaps the reason is because they really don't know what the situation is, and they would not consider themselves to be familiar enough to really arouse suspicion of what's going on in this city over there, who lives where. But we are chayshid is because of chashadat b'mei masa. So why are we concerned? The people in the city know that there's only one resident in that house, so there's no concern that they might think it's subdivided and there's two residents. No, that's not the reason. Why is there a concern of chashad? Because sometimes they regularly pass on only one side and not the other side. They only take one route. And they might think, well, just like they pass by this way, they see that there's no nearest over here, and they might think, well, just like he's not lighting over here, he's not lighting over here either. So it's not because they'll think that they're two residents, it's because sometimes people in the city take one route. They know there's one resident, but they see in this doorway there's no Ner Hanukkah. They'll figure, oh, he doesn't light here, he doesn't light here either. That's why it has to be lit in both psachim.